A continual struggle for the phisher is actually getting phishing emails delivered through to the victim. Now, what makes this particularly hard is how well email clients and antivirus are evolving to recognize a phishing attack. So we just looked at common patterns of these attacks, and as much as we as humans are able to recognize these patterns, the machines are also able to establish patterns and then appropriately block or quarantine those emails in an attempt to protect their users. Now, of course, just like any other aspect of information security, this becomes an arms race, because now we have the phishers continually evolving to try and conceal the purpose of their emails. So just as defenses improve, so does concealment, and the whole arms race continues. Certainly though, there are a set of very common practices that the phisher does use to try and attempt to obfuscate the intent of the emails that they're delivering. Let me give you just a few examples. This looks like a pretty typical email, but what the attacker is attempted to do here is wrap everything up inside images. So we're not actually looking at text. It looks like text, but inside the body of the email, we've simply got images. Now what this means is that in order to properly defend against an attack like this, the email client or email service has to then OCR the images, so do optical character recognition, to figure out exactly what this email says. So it makes it that little bit harder. Now there's an easy way to tell that this email is all just images. Let me open up the original one and I'll show you. So here is the actual email. And again, this is one that was sent to me. Let me now move over to that email. I'm going to click somewhere in the body and then Control A to select. Now all I have here is blocks of images. It's not like up here in the subject where I can click and drag and actually select individual letters or words. If I try and do that in the body, it selects great big blocks one at a time. And this is very often used as a technique to try and evade the ability for a system to actually look inside the contents of the email and form a decision about whether it is legitimate or not. So that's image blocks. Let's have a look at another mechanism of filter evasion and concealment. Redirects are a really good example. Smart email services will look at where links are going to, and they have their own databases of what constitutes a malicious site. Very extensive databases too, mind you. So what the phisher wants to do is, rather than linking directly to their phishing page, which may already be blacklisted, is that they want to link to another page which then redirects to the phishing page, or in some cases has multiple different redirects along the way. Very often as well, these redirects will have other obfuscation techniques in them, so that if an email service, such as Outlook.com, received a phishing email and followed the link, they wouldn't actually be able to follow the link all the way through to the eventual target. Now the best way to demonstrate this is I'm going to take one of the links in this email, paste it into Chrome, and we'll have a look at all the network requests that go with it, and we'll see how many times it actually redirects. So I'm in Chrome and I've opened up the developer tools. I'm also on the network tab, so let me paste in the URL from that phishing attack, and then we'll see what happens when we load it. Okay, so we can see that the phishing page itself is loaded in the background. I'm pretty sure I'm not today's lucky winner, and that I will be asked to complete many surveys and probably provide some personal information at the end of it. But we have also seen a number of requests. So let's jump over here and scroll up and see what's happened. Now note the first 3 requests. They've all resulted in an HTTP 302, a temporary redirect, and each one has responded to the browser and told it to go to a different location. So it redirects again, and then redirects once more before it actually loads at the target site. So in terms of tools that are actually looking to figure out where the links within potential phishing emails go, this can be a really effective mechanism. It really comes down to how intelligent the tool is and how well it's able to emulate the actual behavior of a browser. Let's look at another filter evasion and concealment technique. This is a very common practice. Have a look at the domain name. Now, when you start reading this, you read paypal.com, and many people will see that and then mentally pass the domain name test I talked about earlier on in this module. They see paypal.com, which is what you would expect to see on a PayPal website. But of course, this is just a subdomain. The actual domain itself is this service-secure with 2 E's in it. And paypal.com is simply a subdomain of that original domain. Now, in this particular case, it also really helps that it's a well-designed phishing page. This is actually very consistent with the actual PayPal website. In fact, you can click through the other links and you remain within this phishing website. So it's quite well put together. So always pay attention to that. Don't just look at the start of the domain name and stop. You need to understand the entire thing. This is a great way of concealing the true intent of the site from the user. It won't trick automated defenses, which will just look at the full host name in its entirety, but it will trick us gullible humans who tend to just see what we want to see. Let's look at one more mechanism of concealment before we move on. This is another really common mechanism used on phishing pages. An attacker will compromise another legitimate website. In this case, it's the website at supreme9events.com. That's not a phishing website, that's a legitimate business. But in this case, the attacker has stood up their phishing pages well and truly down the directory tree. And you can see that just by looking at the path in the address bar. Now, what this means is that firstly, any automated defenses are not going to work until this particular site gets blacklisted, or possibly the entire path, but certainly from the outset, it's an established, trusted site. And it also means that the attacker gets to sit on someone else's hosting, someone else's bandwidth, and ultimately, and very unfortunately, compromise someone else's reputation. Because inevitably what will happen is that the automated tools will recognize that this website is hosting a phishing page, and eventually this will get blocked. But again, it is enormously common. In fact, let's move on, and I'll show you how to find a huge number of phishing pages, just like this one here.